Imagine a world where victory stood one invention away, where a single breakthrough, a spark in a factory, a bold idea on paper, the tightening of one final bolt could change the destiny of millions. In 1943, the world came terrifyingly close to such a reality. Germany was losing soldiers, losing ground, losing the war, but it wasn't losing its genius for engineering. When desperation mixed with innovation, something darker emerged. Machines that defied imagination, weapons decades ahead of their time, technologies so advanced they looked like fragments of the future dropped into the past. Some of these inventions were rushed into the battlefield, still dripping with grease from the assembly line. Others remained in underground bunkers, buried secrets of a dying regime. But every one of them carried the same chilling possibility. If Germany had completed them sooner, the world might have ended very differently. These are not just weapons. They are crossroads, turning points where history almost cracked, missiles that touched the edge of space, tanks that seemed invincible, rifles that shaped the next century, submarines so advanced they belonged to another era entirely. Tonight, we descend into the shadows, into workshops, bunkers, forests, factories, and skies torn apart by war. We uncover the 7 German weapons that almost won World War II and came closer to victory than the world ever realized. The rumble began beneath the earth. Deep inside a concrete fortress, German engineers stood behind glass walls, faces illuminated by the glow of control panels. Moments later, the ground shook, dust rained from the ceiling, and a streak of fire erupted upward into the clouds. The V-2 rocket, the first long-range ballistic missile in human history, had left the Earth. Launched into the sky at over 3,500 km/h, it climbed higher than any aircraft, soared through the stratosphere, then came screaming down at supersonic speed. No sound of engines, no air raid sirens, no warning, just impact, just devastation, just silence after the explosion. The people of London never heard it coming. It was the world's first weapon capable of crossing national borders faster than sound. A machine so advanced it forced a new word into military vocabulary: missile. This was not a bomb. It was an omen. If Germany had been able to mass-produce the V-2, thousands instead of hundreds, the war in Europe might have collapsed into chaos. Allied headquarters, airfields, factories, shipyards, all would have been within reach. The V-2 didn't win the war, but it changed the future. After 1945, everyone wanted one. The Americans seized Werner von Braun. The Soviets seized the factories. The Cold War began with the echoes of this weapon's fire. The V-2 rocket, the weapon that didn't win W but won the space race. By 1944, the skies above Germany were a sea of American bombers, B-17s and B-24s blotting out the sun. Then one day, a shape cut through the clouds at a speed no pilot had ever seen. Sleek, predatory, deadly. The Messerschmitt Me 262, the world's first operational jet fighter, slashed through the bomber formation and disappeared before the gunners could even react. It didn't fly. It screamed across the sky. Allied pilots described it as an eagle hunting pigeons. At 870 km/h, the Me 262 was nearly 200 km/h faster than the fastest Allied fighters. Its cannons could tear a bomber in half with a single burst. Its acceleration was violent, almost unnatural. This was the first taste of truly modern air combat. But the jet had an enemy Germany couldn't defeat: time. Hitler interfered, demanding the Me 262 be used as a bomber, a catastrophic mistake. Fuel shortages slowed production, sabotage inside factories delayed engines, runways were bombed daily. Yet even with all these disadvantages, every time the Me 262 took to the sky, the entire air war shifted for a moment. If Germany had deployed 300 Sapere 262s 6 months earlier, the Allies might have lost control of the air. And without air superiority, the invasion of Europe becomes nearly impossible. The Me-262 was not just a fighter, it was a warning from the future, a preview of what air warfare would become, a glimpse of victory that slipped through Germany's fingers. In the midst of Eastern Europe, the ground trembled long before soldiers heard the engine. Trees shivered, birds fell silent, and then it emerged from the fog. The Tiger II, known to Allied crews as the King Tiger, a 69-ton colossus with armor so thick most Allied shells simply bounced off. Its main gun, the KK-43 8088, could destroy a Sherman from over 2 kilometers away. 2 kilometers. Its armor was angled, hardened, almost sculpted for invincibility. One survivor said, "When a King Tiger appeared, every other sound disappeared. It wasn't fast. It wasn't reliable. But it didn't need to be. Where it stood, it dominated." At the Battle of the Bulge, a handful of King Tigers held up entire armored divisions. In Poland, a single Tiger II destroyed 14 Soviet tanks before withdrawing untouched. But greatness had a cost. It was too heavy. It broke down often. It consumed fuel Germany didn't have. If Germany had mastered the Tiger II earlier, fixed its flaws, produced it in real numbers, the road to Berlin might have been closed. The Allies had courage. The Soviets had numbers. But the Tiger II had something else entirely: fear. Beneath the waves of the Atlantic, a shadow moved in silence. The Type XXI U-Boat was unlike any submarine the world had ever seen. It didn't need to surface. It didn't need air for days. It traveled underwater faster than Allied ships moved above the surface. This was the world's first true modern submarine. Its batteries were enormous, a technological leap. Its silent running mode made it almost invisible to sonar. Its torpedoes could be reloaded in minutes instead of hours. In practice, the XXI could outrun destroyers, dive deeper, stay submerged longer, hunt undetected, wipe out convoys before escorts could react. If dozens had entered service in 1943, the entire supply chain to Britain could have collapsed. There would be no fuel for tanks, no ammunition for guns, no food for citizens. But the Type XXI arrived too late. Barely a dozen became operational. Most never left port. But after the war, every nation copied it. The Soviet Navy, the U.S. Navy, the Royal Navy. The Type XXI didn't win the war. It built the future of underwater warfare. The sound haunted soldiers more than anything else. A ripping, shredding, mechanical scream. Brrrt! The MG-42, known as Hitler's buzzsaw, fired up to 1,500 rounds per minute, twice as fast as Allied machine guns. Its rate of fire was so high that individual shots blended into one continuous roar. American soldiers joked, uneasily, that it sounded like ripping cloth. Veterans said the sound alone could freeze a man in place. The MG-42 reshaped defensive warfare. It covered entire fields with fire, suppressed entire platoons, created zones of death soldiers feared to cross. It was reliable, simple, terrifyingly effective. The Allies studied it. NATO copied it. Modern MGs still borrow its design. A single MG-42 nest could hold off dozens. A battalion armed with them could stall an entire assault. If Germany had supplied enough ammunition, enough barrels, enough crews, no infantry assault would have been safe. The MG-42 wasn't just a machine gun, it was a psychological weapon. While the Tiger II was brute strength, the Panther was elegance, deadly, efficient, almost flawless, fast enough to maneuver, armored enough to survive, armed with the lethal 75mm KC-42, capable of piercing Allied tanks with ease. The Panther was everything a Wobbly tank should be. Its sloped armor inspired every post-war tank. Its mobility was unmatched. Its optics were the best in the world. At Kursk, Panthers tore through Soviet lines. On the Western Front, they shocked U.S. armored divisions. Sherman simply could not match them one-on-one. If the Panther had been deployed earlier, with trained crews, stable factories, enough spare parts, the Allies would have faced a nightmare. The Panther wasn't just a tank. It was a blueprint for the future. Its legacy lives in the Cold War. Its DNA is visible in the Leopard, in the T-72, in the Abrams. Germany didn't have years to perfect it. But if it had, Europe might look very different today. In the ruined forests of the Eastern Front, a new kind of soldier appeared. He carried something smaller than a rifle, lighter than a machine gun, but more powerful than both. The STG-44, the world's first true assault rifle. Intermediate cartridge, high rate of fire, accurate bursts, easy control, rapid reload. The STG-44 didn't just give soldiers a weapon, it gave them flexibility. Soviets feared it. Americans admired it. The AK-47 was built on its concept. Imagine if every German infantry division had been armed with STG-44s, Blitzkrieg would have been reborn. Urban battles would have shifted. The Eastern Front might not have collapsed. This weapon was decades ahead of its time. Its arrival was too little, too late, but its influence unmistakable. By the end of the war, Germany had the genius, but not the fuel, not the resources, not the time. Each of these weapons was a glimpse into a terrifying alternate reality, one where the V-2 rained fire across continents, one where jet fighters ruled the sky, one where invincible tanks held the front lines, one where submarines cut the world in half, one where infantry carried the future in their hands. These weapons didn't win the war, but they almost did. And that is what makes them so chilling, so fascinating, so important to remember. History is not just written by victories, but by the victories that almost happened. 7 weapons, 7 crossroads, 7 moments when the world held its breath. The German war machine didn't run out of ideas. It ran out of time.